Hi, it's Rachel. I want to continue talking about this concept of error, okay? So, error, which sometimes people call sin, is simply when you are not in alignment with the spiritual laws that God has established as He created this entire universe. So, when you're walking out of that spiritual law, you're walking in disharmony with it, you're walking in error. That is what sin is. So, at no point does the Heavenly Father feel anger or wrath or judgment in the sense that it has been portrayed to him. Okay? That is man in his lack of divine love putting those attributes upon God. So you can understand, because when you don't have that divine love, so you're viewing life without love, that's how you view it. You view all of these situations, the emotions, everything about it without the love in it. And that's those pictures that you get, the punishment of God, the wrath of God, the anger of God. So that's not a true reflection of the Heavenly Father. Okay, that's man's perceptions in their knowing of who He is. But when you come to know that divine love of God, you come into understand that what's going on here is that you have these laws that He established, the law of cause and effect. Okay, so for any action, there is a result. You do something and there is effect of that action or that thought or that word or that belief. So when we walk counter to that, that's error. And when we don't, then we don't have error. And it is only the divine love that can truly, by working in us, bring us in complete harmony with the spiritual laws, because it reveals all that love, really shines the light on them, because it's a part of them, because those truths are what carry out that love, and that love supports those truths, and those truths support that love. And so as you start moving and growing in that love, all of the error starts being pushed out, because you're growing in harmony with all those spiritual truths. So these are what's work in our life. So there is no other judgment or punishment or anything else from our Heavenly Father. It's only these laws that have established, and we're either walking in harmony with them or not in harmony with them. So that is our judgment, if you're walking in accordance with it or if you aren't. So let me give you this analogy of what we have here, okay, as a parent or a father with a child. So if you have two children in a family, if you have one child that trusts the father, so obeys what the father says, wants to walk in the father's ways, a good child, okay, they receive, not only do they grow and they learn because they're learning from the father willingly, but they're not experiencing suffering in their life because they're walking in the wisdom of the ways. Okay, so they're not being mean to other kids at school, for example, because they've learned from their father. I'm sorry, I spaced there's space for a minute. They're learning from their father about how to treat other people. Okay, and you treat other people as you want to be treated. You don't want someone to be mean to you, so don't be mean to me. Be mean to them. That's what that child does. The other child is mean to the other children. So then the other children are mean to that child, and now they have all these problems that are going on. They're living out, because they're operating the cause, which is they're being mean, is producing that effect. So they have this suffering and problems and all these other things that they're producing in their life. That's what happens with us and our Heavenly Father. Okay, there's these certain things, and when we learn in His wisdom and His divine love, we walk in them, and it creates this peace because we're walking in harmony with the spiritual laws. If we're not walking in harmony with those, which ultimately is all about how do you really love in the very true sense, okay, in a perfect love sense, is that if you're not walking in that, then you're going to experience the ramifications of that and the consequences of it, simply because you're walking counter to those laws and you experience the consequence. So here in this life, a lot of times parents punish their children. So not only does the children have, because they want an instant effect to happen, because what happens in our lives is we do certain causes, and because the effect isn't instant, we don't learn. And that's how things build. We eat all this bad stuff for us, and it doesn't have any effect because our bodies are very durable, but you know what? It is affecting our bodies. We just don't see it. And yet we notice that later on in life. And now we have all these problems. Okay, so parents, in order to help children, they want a quicker effect, so they discipline the child. So they're adding on top of already that cause and effect situation an effect that's more immediate, so the child learns faster, so to speak. Our Heavenly Father doesn't punish us. Okay? That's not an element, that's not a part of how He interacts with us. He has established these spiritual laws, and those spiritual laws play out. Okay? And so what happens, because they do, okay? Because you never can act in a way contrary to the spiritual laws and get away with it, because it's a law. It's building, it's coming out in some way that you're not understanding the cause and effect relationship. You don't see the cause and effect relationship. So, but He doesn't come and punish us on top of that cause and effect. All right? So that's something different with our Heavenly Father than what you see with parents and children today. But what He has done is simply establish those laws, and either we can be in harmony with them and going along with them, or we're not. So it's very important to understand that attribute of our Heavenly Father and how He relates to us. And He is always coming to us in love, because that is the bond that He wants to create with us. So He never forces Himself upon us. Because love doesn't force itself, it's always waiting, okay, for that love to be extended back to it. And when we're operating contrary to the spiritual law, so we're creating very ill effects by whatever it may be, then, we're walking against those causes, so we're experiencing those ill effects, we're creating that whole dynamic in our life. But that's what the beauty of divine love is, that as you start to receive it into your soul, because you're asking for it, because it can only come through the Father, because it's not generated from ourselves, because it's coming with His perfect wisdom and intellect and flowing into our lives, then then we start seeing what those laws are. It starts uncovering them and revealing them, and naturally, because we desire to love, we start walking in them. And so we start, all the ill effects, which thus causes the problems and the suffering, start moving out of our life. We're becoming in harmony with those laws. So a lot of times, we're praying for things to be removed and this and that. We need to pray, what is the cause? And really seek what is the cause that's producing these effects. And often, what helps to reveal that is an understanding of this divine love, because that love reveals a whole layer of life and how we are to live and to be and to express ourselves, that is very wrapped up in these spiritual laws that you can't see in just a natural love. Okay, the divine love gives you an ability to see a depth of the spiritual laws, that's cause and effect, that you can't otherwise see. So it's very, very powerful as you move into this divine love to create a harmony and a peace in your reality, in your life. And in the next video, let me say one more thing before I go into the next video. And that is about how, when you're learning about divine love, you, first of all, in desiring to love perfectly, and you start growing in honor, because that's part of love. You start honoring God and the work and how He works and what that love does in your life, and seeking Him. You start honoring others. You start honoring yourself. And that has massive ripple effects in terms of the effects in your life. you start truly treating others as you want to be treated because you want to love them perfectly. That's just your desire. And in that, you start creating a life that has a lot more harmony in it because you're coming in line with those spiritual laws. Because you truly are starting to treat them as you would want to be treated. No hypocrisy, an honesty, a transparency. You know, you're not trying to manipulate or take advantage or deceive or mislead or lie to. I mean, all of these things just are pushed out because that's what that divine love does in you. And this is something too about this, the dynamic that I've mentioned before about lust and love, because lust in its foundation is all about you wanting to gather something to yourself, and you're not really concerned about the consequences when you're feeling lust. Okay? It's not just a lust for in a sexual sense, but it's also, you know, a lust for food, a lust for power, a lust for money, a lust for approval, a lust for influence or fame or status or you know, it's something that you're just trying to gather to yourself some material or even other attributes. All right, and sometimes that supersedes your ability to discern or even care about what the consequences are because you're concerned about, you know, you want this huge house or you want to live in this huge neighborhood or whatever it is. Okay? Versus, and that dynamic of that lust always creates negative consequences because you're not even, it kind of clouds and blinds you or makes you not care about the ramifications. All right, so that's a great trap because lust is very compelling, okay, in its different forms. Love, on the other hand, is always wanting to extend itself outward and to give. Okay, it's not about an accumulation to yourself, it's about an outflow in giving and caring to others, for everyone. Eventually, especially when you're in the divine love, it's an all-consuming, boundless, limitless. It knows no separation. It knows no segments. It's like it's all inclusive because it's coming from the love of the Father, who He loves all of His creation. His love is always extending out to all of His creation. So those two dynamics are very contrary. So you start talking about the law of cause and effect. Okay, that principle, lust, the beginning cause in your spirit, and this what it creates in your actions can be have ill effects because of that dynamic because when you're trying to gather, you are taking and pulling from other people's realities without care of the consequences to them. That will reap negative effects in your life. And again, you may not experience them immediately, but they're starting to accumulate. Okay? So these dynamics are something that that divine love naturally shines a light on. And not only that, but changes your desires. So it pushes out the lust, it pushes out the fears, it pushes out the greed and all of those things because those aren't a part of it. And as it starts to fill and consume your soul, it starts to push all of those out. Okay, in my next video, I'll go into a little bit more.